It is, they say, at least the writer of the book of Hebrews, most likely Paul, says that it is appointed unto man once to die, and after that, the judgment. One of the most oft-quoted scriptures within the Christian religion. What does it really mean? You know, I'm going to say that you have no idea what it really means, but I'm also going to say it's an encoded transmission. It is encoded. Hello, Ryan Coyne. It is encoded information within the first century Greek scriptures, and we're about to break it down and give you an idea of what it means. Exciting stuff coming up this week. If you didn't see the show this morning, the Not Your Normal Sunday show with Wayne Steiger, you got to make sure you check that out. It was absolutely amazing, and you need to make sure that you see that program. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this scripture is something that is used all the time. It's spoken all the time, and I don't think anybody really has any idea what it means. In fact, I didn't really quite get what it meant until I got into it just earlier today. Let's take a look at the verse itself. We're going to take a look right into the original Hebrew in this, or Greek, but it's probably originally written in Hebrew because it is the Hebrew. So we're going to look at this, and we're going to see that it says, and inasmuch as it's appointed to men once to die, and moreover, after this, to face judgment. Well, what does this really mean? Is this a dung scripture? Yes and no, and yes and no, as Halo Marquise, my good friend, would say. Yes, it is, but it is dung because it's encoded. It has a lot of truth for us if we know how to crack the code and get into the actual depth of what it is teaching us. So it is dung, but it is a dung diamond. And I guess with enough pressure and enough time, even dung could be turned into diamonds. Maybe not. That's only coal. But anyway, you get my point. Let's take a look at it. And as much as, what does it mean? It means that, it means how many, how much? Well, it just means that if we add it up, it is appointed. What's appointed mean? It means reserved for, stored up. From apo, which means away from, and from chemai, which means recline. So it's laid up for you. It's kind of like whether you want it or not, it's laid up for you. You got to come this way. It is appointed to men, and this doesn't just mean men. It means one of the human race. So it's appointed to every one of the human race. Every one of the human race has it coming to die. What does to die mean? We all have it coming to us to die, to go away from. It's from this word, 575, which means away from. And it strengthens this word, 2348, which means dying. So what it's really saying is it's appointed to every one of us to come away from death with the idea of a crisis. Oh, some of you are starting to see it. It is from each one of us to come away from death with the idea of divine judgment, with the idea of judging, making decisions concerning judgment and accusation. That changes things a little bit. Let's go back and take another look at this in the original English. What was that? Hebrews 9:1, what was it? Let's see, Hebrews 9. Hebrews 9. Come on, work with me, Bible Hub. It doesn't want to work with me, so we're going to have to refresh it. But Hebrews 9, I think it was Hebrews 9. Yes. So let's look at it in the King James, bless God, because everybody knows that's the real Bible that Paul and Silas had. It's not there. I'm going to have to go. I lost my track of where that verse actually is. I lost track of where that verse actually is. I'm sorry, I got a little bit distracted. We'll find it. But the bottom line is that verse says that Each one of us, human beings, wants to die. I'll get it back here in just one second. 9:27. Thank you. I know somebody out there is telling me Hebrews 9:27, but Hebrews 9:27, and we'll go right back to it here for you, so you can see and make sure that I am not pulling the wool, as it were, over your eyes. And that's interesting, pulling the wool over your eyes, because you're sheep, right? We're sheep, so that's why they pull the wool over our eyes. That's why they trick us. You didn't think about that, did you? Because I didn't think about that until now. And as it is appointed unto men, it's laid up for us all to come away from death and do judgment. So what does it really mean? It is appointed, it's laid up to all of us. So sooner or later, all of us are going to die and come away from death and enter into the act of judgment. Do you know what this verse is really saying? This verse is really saying that we as individuals are going to keep dying and dying and dying and dying and dying and dying and coming back 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 until we come away from death with the idea that we need to do some judging. What do we judge, ladies and gentlemen? We're to judge ourselves first and foremost, aren't we? So it is appointed to you. It's laid up for you. And this is some revelation knowledge for you. It is laid up for you, ladies and gentlemen. It is reserved for you, ladies and gentlemen. Sooner or later, you've got to do this. I recommend sooner, because later's no fun. You have to die. Well, what do you mean die? Well, a verse without a context is a pretext. A text without a context is a pretext. So let's put this word die in context. The master said, unless a kernel of wheat, a little piece of wheat, falls to the ground and dies, it cannot sprout into a plant. Okay, so unless the kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it can't sprout unto a plant. So you got a little kernel of wheat, like that one right there. That's a little kernel of wheat. And unless it falls into the dirt and dies, it gets buried and dies, that's the only way that it can sprout up and be be a wheat, right? That's the only way it can sprout up and be a wheat plant. If that kernel does not die, then that kernel can never become a wheat plant. You don't have to be a Bible college graduate and a 20-year preacher to understand what's going on with that verse. Unless you, as the kernel of wheat, the first fruits, right? Unless you, the bread of life, unless you, the wave offering, the sheath offering, unless you, the kernel of wheat, die, and you fall to the earth and die. Why the earth? Because remember, the earth is where you came from. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Unless you realize that you're just a kernel of wheat, and unless you realize that this is not you and this has to die, then you can't grow, be born again. You can't grow into a productive plant. And the master also said that this is the extent of my people drawing skills right now. You as a person, how about that? That's fancy, huh? If you fall on the rock, that's a rock. If you fall on a rock, boom, you're going to be crushed if you fall on a rock. You're going to be broken if you fall on a rock. Trust me, I've fallen on some rocks. But if you really fall on a rock, you're going to be broken, right? And that sounds painful, and it probably is. But think about this. If you fall on the rock and get broken, that's one thing. But if a rock falls on you, it says that you'll be crushed to powder and you'll blow away and you'll never be anymore. And this is what the master said. So let's put these things together. unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it cannot sprout again to be a productive, fruitful plant that will not only be a plant that can sustain itself, but it will feed others. Because a wheat plant, I mean, that one kernel of wheat falls down and dies. It sprouts up in a plant that has 10, 20 heads on it with whole bunches of kernels. It exponentially reproduces itself. But it can't do that until it falls to the ground and dies. If you fall on the rock, you're going to be broken. And those of you that have been to the dark night of the soul understand that. Those of you that have done the shadow work understand that. Those of you that have broken through this and got into your spirit understand that. You fell on the rock. You took your kernel of wheat and you fell on the rock and you got broken. Your pride got broken. Your ego got broken. Your will got broken. Your mind got broken. Your I can take care of myself body got broken. Fivefold brokenness: mind, body, ego, intellect. Anyway, we'll go back to that. That's another show. But you got broken. There's some of you out there that wouldn't fall on the rock. There's some of you out there that wouldn't let your kernel die. And you're going to get crushed into powder and you're gone for good. And I don't want to scare you, but sooner or later, if you don't fall on the rock's going to fall on you. Can you smell what the rock's got cooking? Fall on the rock. Be the kernel of wheat that falls to the ground and dies. It's appointed to men to get to the place where we die once and go, oh yeah, this isn't really me. I'm not really dead. We keep coming back. We keep coming round. John Lennon just sitting there watching the wheels go round and round. He really loves to watch them roll. We keep coming round and round and round and round and round until finally we get off that painted pony. We get off that merry-go-round. We realize, this isn't me. This is not me. This must die. This kernel of wheat must die. Let it die. Be like Derek says. Take the marker, draw the line on your neck, say, here's the place to cut. Let this kernel of wheat die. And once you die to your flesh, once you die to yourself, once you die to your will, your ego, your mind, your emotions, once you die to you, this you, the body you, the flesh you, the mud hut you, once you die to this, then you can enter into that process of judgment. And what's the process of judgment all about? The process of judgment is about deciding, in a human sense, what's right and what's wrong. But really, in a spiritual sense, and in a sense of what we're talking about, in an NCK, new cosmic knowledge, heavy revy sense, it's about judging between what's helpful and useful and what is not helpful and not useful. So once you die to this, once you get, this is a kernel of wheat, I got to let it die. And in fact, I got to kill it. I got to kill it. I got to kill it. And once you kill it, somebody says, Jeff, how do you kill it? Starvation. You starve it to death. You go into the dark night of your soul. You go into meditation. You go into shadow work. You go into analytical mind track analysis. And you starve this to death. And sometimes you fast. You starve it to death. And then once this is starved to death, once this is dead, and by dead, I don't mean shoot yourself, cut yourself, none of that. I mean, it's dead as far as it's not in control anymore. It has been dethroned. Then you begin the judgment process, not of this, because this is dead, this is gone, this is buried, forget it. It's just carrying you around until you can figure out how to get out of it permanently. But then you begin the judgment process, not of this, because this has already been weighed in the balances and found wanting. Then you begin the judgment process. What's good? What's bad? What's helpful? What's not helpful? What's useful? What's not useful? What is service to others? What is service to self? And you start doing the judging and the purging process. Remember how the master said some things are wood, hay, stubble. Strike a match, light a fire, burn, baby, burn. Fire's hot. Fire causes pain. Fire makes smoke. Broken. Death. We all need to have a Viking funeral. Throw that match onto our lives and let it burn, baby, burn. But like Derek was saying the other day, when you burn metal, what is it? When you burn gold, what does it do? It just purifies the gold. It makes all the impurities come to the top. You scoop them away, you get even purer gold. Didn't the master say something about being tried by fire so that the gold becomes even purer and the dross can be removed? That's the judgment process. I was doing fine until I started becoming spiritual, then everything went to hell. That's the judgment process. It's appointed to you once to die. And you will keep dying and keep dying and keep dying and keep dying. We know it doesn't mean once to die because there's so much empirical evidence now of past lives, and there's so much empirical evidence of people coming back. We really can't say anymore that you only die once. That's a intellectual ludicrosity to say you only die once. Come on, man. So if it can't mean that, what does it really mean? It means that one of these times that you die, you're going to realize, wow, I'm not dead. It's just that body. Let me, next time I get back, begin to do judgment. Begin to decide what's right, wrong, good, bad, helpful, non-helpful, useful, non-useful, service to self, service to others. Let me figure that out, and let me go through a process of purifying myself. Let me turn up the heat in my own kitchen. Let me fall on the rock. Let it all shake out. Let it all hang out. Let me do my due and get to the place I need to be. So you can see this encoded language within the book of Hebrews. Paul had to tell us about it because of some weird code they have. But he didn't want to just tell us about it straight up and help us. He put it into a coded, encoded, what's the word I'm looking for? The cryptographic term. It was encrypted. It was encoded. And it's left to people to break it. And once it's broken, it's left to you to apply it. It's laid up for every one of us sooner or later to realize that we have to die to self, to realize that our kernel of wheat must fall to the ground and die, to realize that we must lay down our life. What did the master say? Whosoever will save his life will lose it. And whosoever wants to save his life will lose it. But whosoever loses his life will save it. Whosoever dies will live. The master even said that. Yet though he be dead, so shall he live. It doesn't mean you're going to be on the next episode of Walking Dead. It means that even though you're dead in the eyes of the world, even though you're dead in your own eyes, even though you're dead to who you used to be and what you used to do, now you live. Somebody says, Jeff, you got to show me that verse. Usually I wouldn't because you're too lazy to look it up yourself. Though he be dead, yet shall he live. But I'm feeling charitable today, so I will show it to you. And I'll let you study some more. It is, where is it? John 11:25. Let's look in John 11:25. For this great revelation, for this showing you of what we need. And it's interesting that it was the master that said it. It was the master that said it. And he said this, he said, I'm the resurrection, I'm the life. He that believes in me, even though he were dead, yet shall he live. And he that liveth and believes in me shall never die. Wow. I'm the resurrection and the life. So when you kill this, the master comes in and gives you resurrection to a new life, the life where you can begin to do judgment on yourself. And once you live and you believe and you start doing the judgment, the inner work, because it is an inside job, even though you're dead, you killed your flesh, yet you still live. And because you're living this way, death never has any power over you again. And then he said to her, do you believe this? And she says, oh yeah, I believe you're going to come at the end of the world. And I can just see the master rolling his eyes, saying, woman, you just don't get it. So what does he do to make her get it? He takes Lazarus, who's dead, stinky dead, and he raises him from the dead. He's trying to show her, I'm not talking about the end of the world. I'm not talking about pie in the sky in the great by and by after you die. I'm talking about right now while we're still around down here on the ground. I'm talking about dying to self. I'm talking about falling on the rock. I'm talking about realizing, oh, this is what I got to let die. And now I'm going to enter into that judgment, that purification process. It is appointed to you to die. And once you do die and realize, this has to die so I can build my spirit and do the work. Once you realize, oh yeah, I got to die so I can move into the work of judgment, then all of a sudden you get it. Oh, that makes perfect sense. We all got to get to the place where we'll die to self and where we will enter into the work of judgment of ourselves. You guys want to judge me? Get out of my backyard, clean up your own backyard. Judge you. Every time you want to judge me, judge you. Sooner or later, you're going to wake up and realize you got to die. Why not today? Sooner or later, you're going to wake up and realize it's time for you to start the work of judgment on yourself. Why not today? Sooner or later, you're going to have to come to that place of the living death and the alive though dead. Weird, isn't it? You got to come to the place of living death, and then you have to come to the place where even though you're dead, you're alive. And you know what? There's such power in that, because if you're dead, what are they going to do to you? Nothing. There's nothing they can do. Ladies and gentlemen, sooner or later, you got to die. Sooner or later, you got to enter into judgment if you want to see life, if you want to reach spiritual maturity. Let me go back through the chat room really quickly. I've ranted for 24 minutes. It's only right that I read I think dying means to leave this physical body and we judge ourselves. Maybe. Just like in the garden, mind your thoughts. The whole dies and we grow into what we authentically are. Sophie, good job. You got it. Humility, death, and ego pulls the wool back. You don't let them pull the wools over your eyes. Earlier, someone asked if time was really running out. My answer was that no man or woman really knows the end of their life. So in the dimension, the world is over. Time is running out. I agree. If for no other reason in that. Oh, I don't even want this black and white people stupidity. If you think it matters whether you're black or white, Sophia doesn't like me to say this, but you're just plain stupid. I don't care if you're black or white or green or yellow or purple polka dotted. Don't bring that crap into my chat room or I'll bounce you out so fast it'll make your black head or your white head spin. Meditate on being a seed planted in God's garden. I like that. If you die before you die, you'll not die when you die. Soul Retriever 299. Comment of the day. If you die before you die, you will not die when you die. I love it. I love it. Oh, no, not your crayons and your coloring book again, Jeff. Oh, yeah. Here we go again with the let's don't do the black and white thing. I'm telling you, don't do the black and white thing. We're not going to do it. Julie James, good to see you back. It's pure magic. I see the wheat kernel is a parallel truth. Thank you, Theophilus. Fear the rock that destroys both body and soul. That's an addition. I'm not going to, yeah. I'd like to fall in the rock. You can fall in the rock. 0 point, face to face with the I am. Really, the I am becoming. I love it. Is this physical body doesn't die, we're not released? I think we can release, even though this physical body is not literally dead. We don't tend to the garden, and that's why we're dying the way we are. I don't know. If Christ went through a wilderness journey, why would we ever think we'd not have to? That's a good one. Feed your spirit and starve yourself to death, Lester Sumrall. That's not too bad. Forget about your power. You don't have any power. It's a never-ending story. No one does, but we must come together to truly unite. I agree with that. God's going to kill a lot of people when he comes back. Come on, man. God don't kill people. Get that con out of my face. Rip off the Band-Aid, expose the wound. I like that. Z Tur says he's died a couple of times already. We want that wheat to be gathered in the barn. I'm with you. I get stoned so much I've become vulnerable to raw. Oh, boy. Bye-bye. Truth is a healing ointment. Yes, it is. Deep teaching, Jeff. Thank you, Chance the actor. Shake that tree. Thank you. Mortify the deeds of the flesh. Born again or to experience the new birth is a phrase that refers to spiritual rebirth. Okay. I'll go with that. Chocolate, says Michelle. She was listening to the program this morning. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Now you know what Hebrew 9:27 means. It doesn't mean that you're going to die once after 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years, and then you're going to be judged. Doesn't mean that at all. We know there's enough empirical evidence out there now to substantiate the fact that people live more than one life. And if even one person has, then that can't mean that if you believe that your Bible's inerrant. So why don't you look to the deeper story of what it could mean? You keep coming back until you do realize you have to die and enter into judgment. That is a separation of helpful and non-helpful, useful and non-useful, into service to others and service to self aspects of your spirit, yourself, and get yourself to the place where you get rid of the tares and you're nothing but wheat, and we're right back to that wheat kernel. And guess what? Probably when we get there, it's time for us to fall again to another earth or another plane. Let that kernel die so we can sprout up and move into something else. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. It's appointed unto man once to die, then judgment. It's true, but that verse does not mean what you think it means, ladies and gentlemen. And I hope that I've given you some things to ponder on, some things to think about, and some things to look at and observe and ask yourself, because that's what I'm here for, ladies and gentlemen, delivering the mail. Sometimes I bring you bills and you hate me. Sometimes I bring you checks and you love me. So when I bring you a check, cash it and put it to use. And ladies and gentlemen, today, this was a check. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty. The divinity in me recognizes the divinity in you. This is new cosmic knowledge. I salute you for being here, seeking after truth. I hope that you'll unindoctrinate yourself. That's an inside job. I hope you'll create yourself and build the life that you'll love. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, we are the last generation of real humans. And it's time to die and get into judgment so we can get busy.